Dear ladies and gentlemen, we have been requested by some of you to counter comments made by a gentleman rebutting our chapter 44, was Muhammad illiterate? We are doing this for the first and last time, because that is exactly what the followers of Muhammad want us to do. They want us to waste time rebutting their asinine and mendacious videos attacking our series, thus distracting us from our primary and extremely successful purpose of revealing to the world the facts and realities of Muhammad and his Quran. We are putting it up as a chapter so that all of our listeners and detractors will have access to it instead of a rebuttal addressing that particular chapter by itself. We are not going to fall for any of their traps. If any of our listeners, after 184 referenced and comprehensive chapters of ours, suffer any doubts after hearing a video from our detractors, we shall not try to dissuade them from believing Muhammad or his followers. In our free society, this would be their choice. Please remember that if you want any information to either support or disprove our chapters, you can Google it, and with the click of a mouse, you will get your answers. We have invariably insisted that you should use your God-given minds and investigate independently. Always be aware that the followers of Muhammad have only one form of defense, and that is deception and disinformation, just like their mentor Muhammad used to do. I shall now address our attacker in the sequence that he has in his video. It is obvious that our accuser is not an Arabic speaker, and most probably a new convert to Muhammad and Islam. They are so very lucky to have him. We never said that the Quran was poetry, although it has some elements in it. All we pointed out was that the illiterate poets of Arabia composed the best odes and love poems in the Arabian language, decades before Muhammad, but no one ever said they were divinely inspired. Why then should the prose of Muhammad's Quran be attributed to any divinity, especially since it is full of grammatical, lexical, historical, and theological errors, as we have been demonstrating repeatedly? How is it possible that any omniscient God could possibly have revealed such errors and lies as those that fill the Quran? It is of absolutely no relevance whatsoever what the so-called Muslim scholars believe or explain, since they are only using circular logic to argue their points. They are using the very suspect Muhammad's Quran and Hadiths to prove the unprovable. It is obvious that their agenda is to deceive the ignorant and unlearned among both the believers and unbelievers. As you all know, we are limited by time to give all the references that our accuser requires. He should go to our web for more details as we show on our videos. As you are all aware, even with all the references that we throw at them, the Mohammedans come up with the same putrid mantra. Where are the references? He tells you that we have given no reference regarding the story of Imrul Qais's daughter, to the effect that one day when Fatima, Muhammad's daughter, was reciting Surah Al-Qamar 54.1, the hour has come near and the moon has split asunder. Said to her, that is a verse from one of my father's poems, and your father has stolen it and pretended that he received it from Allah. In fact, the following verses of the Quran are exact replicas from those of Imrul Qais. Al-Anbiya 21.96, and they swiftly swarm from every hill. وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبِ يَنْفِسِلُونَ. Al-Saffat 37.61. For the like of this, let all strive who wish to strive. لِمِثْلِ هَذَا فَلْيَعْمَلِ الْعَالِمُونَ. Al-Qamar 54.1. The hour of judgment is nigh, and the moon is cleft asunder. اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر 54.29. And he took a sword and he hamstrung her. فتعاطى فعقر 54.31. And they became like the dry stubble. فكانوا كهاشم المحتضر 54.46. And the hour will be most grievous and most bitter. والساعة أدهى وأمر. Al-Duha 93.1. By the glorious morning light and by the night when it is still. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. For those who are still in doubt, please go to New World Encyclopedia and search for Imrul Qais and read the poem in Arabic. In this connection, W. Sinclair Tisdall elaborates in his book, The Origins of the Quran, page 236, The connection between the poetry of Imrul Qais and the Quran is so obvious that the Muslims cannot but hold that they existed with the latter in the heavenly table for all eternity. What then will he answer? That the words were taken from the Quran and entered into the poem? An impossibility. Or that their writer was not really Imrul Qais, but some other who, after the appearance of the Quran, had the audacity to quote them there as they now appear? Rather a difficult thing to prove. In fact, the name Allah is found in the Mu'allaqat as well as in the Diwan of the poet Labid. So when the Muhammadans claim the Quran to be the words of Allah, do they mean Allah copied the Quranic verses from Imrul Qais or Labid? Why did Muhammad at his deathbed ask for a pen and paper if he only wanted his companions to write his instructions? He said, "Give me a pen and paper to write." Or was he in the habit of asking his companions for a pen and paper every time he had one of his thousands of alleged revelations? Men of power, whether literate or not, have secretaries or scribes to write their letters, speeches, contracts, or peace agreements. They don't ask them to get pen and paper to do so. Furthermore, no human being can know another human being thoroughly. Traitors, serial rapists or murderers, and suicide bombers are people who look like us, eat and drink with us, go to school, church or mosque with us, pray and play with us. But one day we discover they are not whom we thought they were. They too have wives and children who had no idea who they were, truly. Muhammad's companions and wives never had any insight into Muhammad's mind. So my answer to my accuser is not necessarily so. Muhammad was no exception to the rule, since he was able to deceive and betray all of them till the last moment of his life and got away with it. As usual with the followers of Muhammad, whenever we quote from a hadith an item that does not suit them, they accuse us of misquoting or quoting from a weak hadith or an unacceptable hadith. As we have demonstrated in our chapter 125, hadiths or ahadith, even the sahih ones that they brag about so much, leave a lot to be desired regarding the authenticity or their veracity. Nonetheless, there are 6 of them that are considered canonical, and we quote from all of them at different times. It is, after all, intermediate hadith 3834 that the suicide bombers of today believe in. Allah's Messenger said, "The martyr is married to 72 wives of the maidens with large dark eyes, and is made intercessor for 70 of his relatives." And Tirmidhi is not called Sahih. In our chapter 17, Predestination in the Quran, it is crystal clear from the Arabic of the Quran and Hadiths what it means. For our adversary to tell us what the Muhammadan scholars think or assert is totally irrelevant to the facts. It is obvious that they would do their worst to disentangle themselves from the Quranic verses that assert Allah's role in predestination. They have to, since the corollary is simple. With predestination, the Quran is a worthless scripture. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not going to address with a rebuttal any further challenges to us. We have had our challenge on our web for over 2 years without any takers. We have the same in chapter 10 of our series. All we ask from the 1,400 million followers of Muhammad is to point out one single new, practical, intellectual and spiritual concept, precept, thought or idea in the Quran that has not been plagiarized, plundered, pirated and or perverted from the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament, Zoroastrian and pagan Arabian scripture, fetishes or traditions. Only one such verse from among 6,236. This should be among the simplest challenges ever devised to test the novelty, purity or divine origin of any of the verses of the Quran. We are not going to hold our breath in anticipation of any meaningful, factual or intelligent reply from Ozzy or any other follower of Muhammad.